Hi, I'm Brent Barnett on Brownfield Ag News. Joining us today is Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig. Secretary Naig, thanks for being here. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm great, Brent. Always nice to catch up.
Likewise, what have you been up to here lately, Secretary? I know it's late November now. A lot of folks have finished up harvest. What's been going on in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, well, right now I'm trying to get on the right side of the clock. I just got back from leading a trade mission to Vietnam and Indonesia, so I'm trying to adjust back from a little jet lag. But great trip, and yeah, we put the finishing touches on harvest well over a month ago or so. And so it was back to a bunch of travel across the state of Iowa and now an international trade mission as well. So a busy, busy time to be sure.
Glad to hear you got harvest wrapped up. Let's dive in more about this trade mission, Secretary. Like you said, to Vietnam and Indonesia. What all took place while you're on this trade mission?
Yeah, so this is, again, Iowa has a strong record of we go on trade missions, we multiple trips throughout the year, and we had a chance to take farmers on this mission representing corn and soy, pork, beef, and the Farm Bureau. And now it was interesting. This was, of course, Southeast Asia generally is a really important region, a great opportunity. Generally you've got some economies that are, growing population, young population, expanding middle class, and markets that are hungry for protein, and that's everything from yes, pork, beef, dairy, or the feed ingredients to feed that livestock or their own production. And so corn, soy, soybean meal, DDGs, and actually we're seeing a strong increase or interest in ethanol. And so really for us, for a state like Iowa, those are right in our wheelhouse, every one of those. We like to this offering of, hey, we could sell you the protein or we could sell you the feed to feed your livestock industry. Either way, or on all sides of that, we're willing to play ball. So broadly, Southeast Asia, really important growth region for us and for U.S. agriculture. Specifically, Vietnam and Indonesia. These are already they're sizable markets already. So I think 10th and 11th in terms of U.S. ag exports to those two countries. Vietnam is really on a great trajectory. From a grain standpoint in particular, DDGs, soybean meal, ethanol, big opportunity in ethanol. They just released their regulation. They are going to start implementing E10 in their gasoline in the country starting January 1. And we had a group of kind of technical folks in that were working on that policy in Iowa just this fall. And so we've really had a back and forth with them. So we feel some ownership over what's happened with that policy, but really good things happening there. It'd be good for their air quality. It'll be good for their consumers. And of course, it's a great market for us. Now they'll want to make some of their own ethanol for sure, but we can both help them grow their own and supply them. Indonesia is a little different situation. There's some barriers there that need to be knocked down. So there's a strong soybean market. There's a healthy demand for DDGs, but we're really kind of struggling to get beef into that market, and ethanol has really kind of been at a standstill. So really an interesting kind of bookends here. One market that's really on a growth trajectory, another one that's got a lot of potential, but maybe haven't seen the kind of the growth. But we're really excited about both. Of course, the other thing that's happening with both those markets is the Trump administration has signed a framework for a new trade agreement with both. One was back in July, and then more recently in October. And so we know that negotiations are ongoing with both countries. And that'll be good news. I don't think we'll see a ton of growth in those markets until we have those free trade agreements, because it's competitive. And our competitors are Brazil and Argentina and Australia and India and the EU. And so we've got to attack these tariffs that exist and the non-tariff barriers as well. So we learned a lot, tremendous potential. There's work to do.
Overall, were you pleased, Secretary, with the conversations you had in both countries?
Yeah, I was. We had a chance to meet with high-level Ministry of Ag meetings. In fact, we met with the Minister of Agriculture in Vietnam, which was a great opportunity to talk at the highest levels about some of these issues. We also we met directly with importers, and it's always interesting to just flat out ask them, what do you think of our products? Who are our competitors? What would it take? We hear things like, hey, the flat out the tariffs make it so your product is too expensive. So those are good things for us to hear and learn. Or they're looking for certain characteristics, and so it's really good to do that. But we also met with kind of some of their industry associations in both countries, and that was really informative too, to understand, hey, what are the trends that they're looking at? What's the growth signals that they're seeing, and how can we help support them in advocating again for this trade deal, or even advocating for their government, to their governments, for things that they're looking for. So I would just say really positive meetings, high affinity for U.S. products, and this is exactly the reason we go, is because you want to establish those relationships and hear firsthand what's happening in these markets.
When you look at the trade landscape, Secretary, what's been your thoughts on the developments with China and the proposed trade framework there?
Yeah, good news, right? And look, I want to be clear: trust but verify, right? We certainly take it as good news at the highest levels. I mean, we're talking about President Trump and President Xi are talking about soybeans directly. Okay, it doesn't get any higher than that. So I mean, you've got both countries talking about these things in real and significant ways. China making commitments to purchase, and now the question is, will they do it timely, and will they actually live up to their agreements? And that's what the administration needs to do: is hold them accountable, hold them to their commitments. And that hadn't happened in the past, and so we need to make sure that that does. So it's a trust but verify situation, but it's all good news. Now, good news, but that doesn't solve all of our problems, right? We've got high input prices, and prices still aren't where we need them to be, corn or soybean, and especially as we're heading into 26 and making plans, we need more good news. And that's, again, you start to knit together a trade deal with Vietnam, a trade deal with Indonesia, again, top 11 markets, commitments from China. You start stacking those together, and you're talking about real things, real numbers.
Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig with us on Brownfield. Secretary, also wanted to ask you about highly pathogenic avian influenza. We've had a number of reports here on the Brownfield Network the last several weeks of HPAI hitting states like Indiana, especially there in the Eastern Corn Belt hard here this fall. What's been the latest update in Iowa?
Yeah, and I'm going to knock on wood right now. I don't mind doing it right in front of you, that things have been quiet since early October. Now, we know that we're not through the woods by any means, and so we remain very hopeful, even though hope's not a strategy, but it is part of a strategy to be hopeful, and we're always constantly vigilant. We're prepared. We're working with industry. I know our producers are working incredibly hard to maintain the top-notch biosecurity. What we're really talking about here is, how do you keep wild birds away from your domestic birds? And but it is unfortunate. My heart goes out to our friends in Indiana and places east. We have seen the Dakotas, Minnesota, and now it's kind of trickling east, it seems. And I don't know if that's where the birds are flying right now, the flyways, just because of the weather patterns, if they've shifted that way. But of course, Brent, the thing that has to happen to really know that we've kind of moved through the season is we need to start seeing some cold, nasty weather, and start to see some water get frozen over up in Minnesota, the Dakotas, and that really starts to push those migratory birds south. So I would say, given the relatively warm fall that we've had, that we still have some birds that are going to have to travel through Iowa, unfortunately. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we start to see some cases again, but doggone it, we're going to be happy about where we stand today, but we're going to be vigilant.
I know in years past, it's especially talked about during the fall and spring, during the migration periods. But the Secretary, has it turned into a year-round issue?
Yeah, I think it's still a short answer, yes, because the threat is real year round. I mean, it just is. Now, it tends to be more of a threat or more prevalent when that wild population, which we do a lot of wild bird surveillance in the state of Iowa. So I can tell you that we've had positives in the wild birds. It's here. It's in Iowa. It's maybe just not as prevalent in those wild birds, and our biosecurity continues to increase. And you You're just trying to literally plug those gaps and find those incremental gains that you can make to try to be more proactive and preventable. And so, I think that's all contributing to where we stand today. But it's still true that those birds are going to fly south, and then they're going to turn around and they're going to fly north in the spring. And if they are carrying the virus, then you've got a higher risk. So in what sense it's year round, but it's still true that history is showing us that spring and fall migratory period. Now, the migratory period can shift, and maybe that's a little bit of what we're seeing.
Lastly, before you go, as we move through the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday seasons, what would your message be to farmers at this time?
Well, look, I nothing like traveling internationally, and I've had great experiences overseas. But I have to tell you, every single time I step off the plane back in Iowa, I count my blessings that I'm from where I'm from, that I get to do what I do, and that we have the American agriculture that we have. And it's my prayer that as people are sitting down around that great Thanksgiving table, that they will give a little thought to where does food actually come from and what does it take. And the other thing I'm thinking a lot about, Brent, is we're going to head into next year, which will be the celebration of the 250th celebration of the America's the Declaration of Independence, our founding, if you will. And so that's a time for us to really think about what's unique to the American experience. U.S. agriculture, food and agriculture at our core, food security has been absolutely essential to the American story. And I think it's times like Thanksgiving and the end of harvest that it's appropriate, and I'm hopeful that people will be thinking about our great American farmer and what it takes. The other thing, of course, is that we're just coming off of a year that's had tremendous variability, weather challenges, and economic challenges. And farmers are having to sort through a lot of those issues as they're coming into the end of the year, making plans for next year, talking to the banker, and those types of things. So it's a challenging time. It's a stressful time for our producers. And I just hope folks will keep that in mind.
Secretary, it's always great to have the opportunity to connect with you, and I hope you and your family have a safe and healthy holiday break.
Thanks, and same to you.
Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig with us on Brownfield. I'm Brent Barnett reporting.